We're back.
Yeah, we just had a little dip out there. So yeah, please feel free to carry on, buddy.
Um, I think where we were is for me, the system itself, like the Chek system, is for me speaking as a practitioner, the simpler you keep it, the better you are. And anyone who's a practitioner with or studying under the institute and has gone through the journey, I think for me is it gives me a great opportunity to sit back and look at this information, think how can I take this information, and we obviously as practitioners we know a lot of stuff. So how can we then simplify it in our coaching that really gives people the results they're looking for? Because for me, I think, and what I've noticed and observed, that the simpler I've kept my coaching, throwing in and just communicating information in such a way that it becomes more relevant to the client without bamboozling and throwing a lot of technical stuff in there. And I think we've spoken as well, saying that if someone has back pain, for me as an example, and while they're going through their journey, if I say to people, well, did you know that just drinking more water may really help alleviate your back pain? Or if we come off gluten, or if we eat a diet that's got more nutrition in it, if we're getting more rest, if we're just breathing a bit better, and if you're just communicating just very simple terms, and often things that people think, wow, I didn't know that. So as complex as the system is, and we've got all these tools and this great information, I find that where I'm really driving at it is keeping it really simple. Really tuning into the client, giving them something really simple, because and then after time, as these clients are starting to get better, obviously they need to do the work with the corrective exercise. And I think even at that stage, if you're communicating in very simple terms how that's going to benefit them, because as we know, if they understand why they're coming to see him, obviously they want to change. And if they're ready to change, obviously they've got a goal in mind. They've probably got, an objective or even a dream if they're really there. And they say, look, I really want to make some changes because I don't like being in pain anymore. I'm fed up of getting up out of bed every night in pain. And if you say, well, all these corrective exercise we're doing, they're going to get you out of pain. You'll be able to get up the next day feeling fantastic. You'll be able to do the things you love more. And if you just simply lift it at that and think, what, that water I'm getting you to drink a bit more of, that's helping you do that. That rest you're getting to bed at night a little bit more, if you're doing that a bit more often, great, fantastic. Obviously you're getting yourself off gluten and you're making some better choices. And if you speak a simple language, people start to get better. And then people might say, and if you often, I find when they get to that, I say to people, well, here's a copy of How to Eat, Move and Be Healthy. You got some homework. Go and read this chapter for me. And then they start to absorb a bit more of the, if you want, technical information. And that's about as far as I get them. So before I used to bamboozle and say, oh, the horse dance is a great inner unit exercise. It's going to help stabilize your spine. It's going to, it's going to work all these muscles, blah, 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 blah. And people say, yeah, that's great, Tone. What's it going to do for me?
Yeah, straight. Well, yeah, I mean, I think you really touched on something important, very important. This is a concept that Matt shared with us a few years ago. Might have even been the same course we were on, and that's the simplicity within the complexity. So it's like our job is to go to those complex places, learn all of the knowledge about every facet, so that we can A, relate that in a simple, easy to understand way, and B, know the exact right exercise to give, the exact right few stretches to give, the exact right lifestyle recommendations to give to move the dial most effectively for the person. So it's kind of like we go complex so we can make it simple, and that is for me one of the big beauties of the system. And I'd like to just shift the conversation for the last sort of like 10 to 15 minutes or so.
Sure.
Towards more of like a global perspective, because we're going, and this might be one for like a whole other podcast. I got a funny feeling that
might happy to do another one if you want. Happy to do another one when you feel you're ready.
Yeah. No, really happy to talk about that. But yeah, like so we've been going through a very interesting time over the last couple of years, coming on 3 years now. And you know, we were talking just before this podcast, and you were describing it as a global purge in many ways. So yeah, like I'd love to just open the floor up on, you know, that kind of conversation. What in your, from your perspective, like what have we been going through from in the last few years, and is there, do you feel, a deeper meaning behind or underneath what we've been going through?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jess, and it's one that I think we've all been asking ourselves as well. And I think for me, when since now this is my own opinion, and these are purely my own thoughts and my own opinion. I think for me, when this first started, I kind of, you know, I remember sitting there with my wife, and I said, I call bullshit.
Mm.
And she looked at me and said, why would you say that? And I thought, I'm one to really look into our history, and, you know, not only through man's evolution, but also looking beyond that in terms of where we've been and where we're going. So for me, if we look at, you know, what's been going on in the world over the last 20, 30 years, you know, as much as I've been alive consciously over the last 20 years, there's been this cup that's just been filling up, filling up, filling up. And now we've gotten to a point, we've gone boom. So right now we find ourselves 3 years down the track, and the world's changed, as everything in life does. But for me, I think there's this awakening that's happening within us. And for those who are present and looking at this through not rose-colored glasses, but through a lens that says, you know what, I have this opportunity right now to contribute not only to my own life, because I think for me, if we contribute to our own life, then we as a collective can really hold hands with one another, because then again, through my work, this is a sharing of people not only getting their body healthy, but potentially switching on, so they may be a little bit more clearer, saying, well, you know what, I often say to people as a tangent, look at what's going on. Don't believe anything I say. You've got this is what's been said over here. This is what's been said over here. And I say to people, do you believe what's being said over here? Now, most of people sometimes are not evolved enough to be able to see beyond that, because they just believe a narrative, and it can be not just what we've seen in the last 3 years, but even beyond that. So for me, it's like, well, here's all the information that's going on right now on any platform in the world. And do we have the opportunity to think, okay, well, let's have a look at this here, let's have a look at this here, and let me make up my own mind. If I'm able to do that, and that can happen in any area of your life, I feel, it doesn't have to be just what we've been through. For me, I see what's going on right now is this evolution of mankind stepping forward. Even though we've got a lot of, you know, people wanting to see society and planet Earth as they wanted to see it. In other words, people wanting to control people, the world. I think what we're starting to see now in some way in people who are brave enough is their own hero's journey. I feel that from a purely metaphysical perspective, what I see at the moment is this evolution and transformation. It's not going to happen right now, but this is setting up what can happen the next 2, 3, 5, even 10 years. We're either going to see, for me, the most beautiful evolution of the human consciousness and the human spirit, which will just transform us in this other reality. I'm going to say reality because it could be the next vibration that allows every human being to become the ultimate expression of what they came here to be. So I feel there's this transformation, there's this metamorphosis that's happening. And isn't it amazing that we've had almost a pause in that, where people thought, okay, a lot of shit happening in the world right now. And clearly for me, it's like a lot of systems aren't working anymore, from whether it be the economic system or economies, schools maybe not the greatest, various sectors of, in terms of how we're going about natural resources or what we're doing to really make a difference in the planet, to many different platforms that you could look right across. So for me, it's been able to say, okay, we're going to stop here and allow, and what we're seeing now is people starting to evolve and come into their own, saying, well, no, I don't like that. This is what I would like. This is what I'd like to see for my own life. So people, for me, I feel for me, people are starting to have a really good look within themselves and saying, well, do I like what's going on around me? No. Do I want something different for my life? Absolutely. And if so, how do I contribute not only to my own life, but to the life of the planet, to other people? Where am I going to invest my money in order for me to make that happen? What type of relationships do I want to cultivate? How do I just really want to be the best version of myself so I can really let go of this materialistic, dogmatic world we find ourselves in right now, to name just a few. So I feel for me, we're at a beautiful time. And it's also how we see this. Oftentimes people see life through these, these murky glasses, and I think, and it's a reflection of what's going on in their mind. I heard a mentor say, the dirtier the glasses are, the dirtier the world you see it through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and for me, it's what he's saying is, well, if we remove those glasses off and say, okay, well, we've got a clearer picture of what is. And I say to people, ask me, well, what type of life do you want? Do you want to be told no? Funny how no comes back to get us, doesn't it? I often say, I hear no. Well, there's only, what's the opposite of no? Well, it's yes, isn't it? And everything else in the middle is potential, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So we have the potential to evolve and grow into something beyond our wildest dreams. And for me, it starts by just getting very